Hi, I'm Pat Cavanaugh, the publisher of the Covington News, and we appreciate you joining us today for our digital newspaper. And we have today with us Frank Turner Sr. and Sam Ramsey. Sam was the former mayor, longtime mayor of Covington, and Frank was the city manager for years, and both them and their families go back to the early days of Covington and Newton County, and we're glad to have them today. And the reason we're going to start this series, and I'm grateful for them to come in today to help start that. At one time and for years, Newton and Covington were on a fast track to future growth, and we're modeling the state, from what I understand, on growth. And about 2008, when the bottom fell out, I think we lost a whole cadre of leadership, and we had to start all over again. And we certainly hit some bumps in the road. And so I've asked both of them to come today, that they might just share their thoughts on how it was back when they were in charge of the city, and how they worked with the county, and see what kind of ideas and thoughts they might have that we might be able to learn from and do better in our own county. And it's not we're not having this series to cast stones or to blame anybody for anything. It's just we think listening to people that are respected and have done some good things in the city and county is a good way for all of us to learn. So without further ado, Sam, I'm going to turn this over to, and Frank, I'm going to turn this over to you, and just feel comfortable and talk about whatever you would like to on, what you think about where we are and where we're going, and what do you think can happen to our city and county.
Go ahead, Sam.
Well, both of us grew up living in the city, and both of us grew up together.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think my mother taught you in first grade.
That's right. She was my first grade teacher.
First grade
Unfortunately,
teacher.
she couldn't teach Sam. Nobody could teach Sam.
Well, now, Mrs.
Yes.
Swan taught me.
Yeah.
She was the other first grade teacher. And but Frank and I, Frank was appointed city manager, I believe, in 1970, wasn't you?
March 1970, yeah.
And Mayor Dobbs asked me to start being on the planning commission at the same time. So not only have I worked with Frank as mayor, I've worked with him for 15 years on the planning commission, 10 years on the city council, and then 10 years again as mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, he retired a little before I ended up my mayor. I ended up mine with Steve Horton, and Steve was another one I had known all my life. His father used to run a TV shop out here on Porterdale Road.
Back when you repaired television.
That's right.
Instead of throwing them away.
That's right. So I don't know. When you get down to politics, there's a lot of personality involved. Let's just admit that to begin with. And if you can get along with each other real well, Frank knows that we both kind of thought alike. I didn't have to worry about the decisions Frank made, because the decisions he made were just about the decisions I would have made. So we seldom, disagreed about anything. And I thoroughly enjoyed having the luxury of someone like Frank, who not only knew how to do the job, but he had a love for the city and the county.
Thank you, Sam.
And frankly, that's the way I felt. When I was mayor, I had as much interest in Newton County as I did Covington, because I had grown up in Newton County. I knew what was good for Newton County was going to be good for Covington, and vice versa. And if you don't take that attitude about it, you're in bad fix. Because I tell you, people coming in from the outside and seeing united city and county, they know it right away. And if they see something that's divided or not getting along like it should, they know that instantly too. I never will forget, I used to sit down with the county commissioner and the mayor of Covington and the head of the Chamber of Commerce in a room, and we all felt like we could tell somebody what the situation was, and go back and have the support of the people, our council and commissioners. And I never did have my council to go against me on something like this. And
So you guys made decisions sometimes over cups of coffee.
oh yes,
You know, it sounds like. You know.
oh yes, the big decisions, really the things that really change. I told somebody the other day about this story of personal relationships. For example, Dan Patilla and I were on the Boy Scout executive board in Atlanta together. And I was sitting at the table one day with Dan Patilla, and I said, Dan, we have just bought some industrial property down in Covington. I wish you'd come down here and build one of your spec buildings. He said, Sam, I might do that. So it was not 2 weeks' time. He was down here looking at the property, and he went on and he built what we call the Stanley building over here. That was the first building that was built in the industrial park, you might say. And of course, his family went on to build, I don't know how many more. Several more buildings in Kentucky. Just from that one encounter over at a Boy Scout meeting. And we had the best of relationships the whole time. And that kind of thing is what, talking about what gets the industry in, you have to, know folks like that and be.
Well, you know, if that worked, and obviously it has worked then, it seems now that we don't have that cohesiveness that, you know, people can sit down in a room like this and talk and get things done. I mean, why do you think that is? And
Well, like
how do you think you guys did that? I would say in those days, but it was some time ago. How do you?
What do you say, Brian?
What's changed, and why do you think it's changed? Maybe that's probably the good question. You know.
I don't know. Back to Sam's talking about attracting industry, city council was progressive, very progressive in water acquisition, potable water acquisition, and wastewater treatment. Which that's where we were able to talk to industries. They said, we're going to have so much effluent from our system. We had the ability to treat it. The council had done that in advance without argument. They realized it needed to be done. We had one council member one time that said he didn't understand why we were spending so much on water and sewer, but he began to figure right away that that's what you needed to grow industry. And we still have advanced wastewater treatment, which is good. I'm not trying to get into the reservoir argument, which is a lot of political stepping stones for a lot of people one way or the other. I'm not trying to get into that, but having plenty of water, potable water, as well as wastewater treatment is a real draw. Plus willingness to be tolerant. As Sam said, what we call the Stanley building literally sat empty for 10 years. Now, he built other buildings. Patillo would get a client, they would come look at that building and say, well, it isn't exactly what we want this, and Patillo would build them a building for that, so it satisfied their need. And it stayed there for bait until finally Stanley Proto said that's exactly what we need, and they sold it, and he built another one. So, but having people who are willing to be tolerant and just wait, I don't know, I wish I did know the answer to the problems we have right now. It's just there seems to be a lot of pushing and shoving and what's in it for me. If we do this for this part of the county, what's it going to do for me and my people, rather than what is it going to do for the whole county? The district concept is necessary, but still it keeps commissioners thinking only about their district instead of about Newton County as a whole, and I don't know how you correct that. It's just part of nature.
And, you know, it seems like, you know, people like, say, for instance, the years, and you were involved with that, and you've been involved with the center, the development of that, and you know, I've been here close to 8 years now, and you know, watching how that's developed, and it always seemed to be doing so well, and then to see it come almost crashing down because of this 2050 plan, which, you know, is just a small little tiny part of this whole thing, and you know, but it just wasn't a complete. What shocked me was a complete, and we said the word on that, complete intolerance of people all of a sudden just going, you know, good people that I've heard names out in the county, and you know, since I've been here, that own land out there, and all of a sudden just it was like a bitter, nasty thing. It was like, wow, you know, what do you think? It wasn't like that, was it?
The 2050 plan had some revolutionary ideas in it. density swapping was a little bit too revolutionary for people, but it could have been taken out with a scalpel. Instead, they used a guillotine on it. That largely was because, as you said, they had prominent landowners who hired attorneys. And they did a good job of representing their clients. I think it turned out a little bit further than some of the attorneys wanted it to do. But they were representing their clients and they wanted it killed. We do need a plan. And they need to get that plan, put it back on the board, work on it, see what people don't like, what people can't stand, what they don't like, what they can tolerate, and what they'd be happy with, and try to put that together. And I think they could do that if they would just reason together.
Well, Jerry, I was
if they
Jerry,
had a chance
yeah.
at the meetings
Sorry,
to even do that. Right now, their meetings are so tied up with people coming making demands on things that shouldn't tie them up too much. I won't get into the legal matters, but that takes up hours and hours.
Yes.
When they could be doing some meaningful things. And some of these people bringing these things up are, they're political hopefuls also. And they don't mind tying it up.
You know, there is a and you, I know, in fact, I think, Frank, you might be on the new board on this, but the 20 Newton Tomorrow plan, I think, in fact, we have something in the paper today about it, that's started by the mayors in the county, and has a great board to back up that's kind of, and Jerry Rosenberry has kind of pushed that, and I mean, I'm really excited about it too, from what I can see, and it's going to be open to the public. And you know, and the 2050 plan is not part of it, and I mean that's but
that should
but
be,
at least the baby's not going to be thrown out with the water.
Not the 2050 plan, but something to replace that 2050 plan needs to be on high priority for this group to get together and try to.
I think that's what they want to do. At the meeting we had, was it yesterday?
Yeah, I think you had a meeting this past week.
Frank's on it. So
I think we can put something together. And the 2050 plan was not just done by that small group. There were hundreds of people involved with it. Unfortunately, when it got so muddy, and not muddy because they didn't understand it, but muddy because people were throwing mud.
Right.
Most of the people, good, respectful people who were involved with it and supported it, said, I don't want to get involved in that. And they didn't come to the commission meetings and say, hey, wait a minute, let's take a deep breath on this thing.
Well, it just came out of nowhere, it seemed. You know, maybe it didn't, and maybe it was there all along, and maybe we just didn't see it. You know?
Well, before you bring up something like that, Frank knows one of the powers that the mayor's got is to set the agenda. And frankly, the commissioner of Newton County needs that same situation where he sets the agenda. Because he sees things coming sometimes the board doesn't see. I mean, if you're sitting there every day and hearing things come in, you can say, you know, this is a problem. We need to look into this before we do anything.
Right.
And Frank knew how I was when I'd have a council meeting. I knew how the votes were going to turn out just about ahead of time. And if you don't, you're in a bad fix. You got 6 people sitting there. You got to get them thinking the same way.
So you have, and we're going to continue this next week, and on this, and when we talk with Frank and Sam on further in this discussion we just had today, and we hope that you've enjoyed this. If you have any comments on it, please feel free to contact us. You're welcome to come in and have your comments said, and we're going to continue this type of series and talk to people that care about this county and don't want to be involved in fighting and want to be able to do the right thing. So we'll see you next week.